Thank you. And I'd like to begin with a series of thank yous to Harvard Bookstore, to C-SPAN, to my publisher, Simon & Schuster, and to all of you for joining me this evening. I'm only going to speak for about 20 minutes, and I'm just going to jump right in. I found this book in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. 6 years ago, in St. George's, Bermuda, I embarked on a 140-foot sailing ship, the Sea Education Association's SSV Corwith Kramer. I would be at sea for 3 weeks, away from telephone, internet, and physical libraries. Yet I was in the middle of a research project on Benjamin Franklin that required me to read material in French. So I decided to use my time at sea to revive my French by reading a novel in that language. The book I chose was a small paperback edition of Jules Verne's Le Tour du Monde en 80 jours, or Around the World in 80 Days, first published as a newspaper serial in 1872. When I wasn't on watch or otherwise busy on the ship, I slowly made my way through the book. My French was good enough, to my surprise, that I actually enjoyed the story, and as a historian, I appreciated its period detail, especially the nature of the bet that sends Verne's protagonist, the Englishman Phileas Fogg, racing around the world. At his London club, Fogg remarks offhandedly that scheduled travel services could take a person around the globe in a period of 80 days. Prove it, the clubmen challenge him, and he's off. That 80-day measure was only conceivable by the late 19th century. In the age of sail, getting around the world had taken months or even years. The speed of my sailing ship would have lost Fogg his bet. It was the invention of steam power, but also the creation of regimented European empires around the globe, the opening of the Suez Canal, and the emergence of commercial travel services that together made it just possible by the 1870s to do the global circuit in 80 days. The second thing that impressed me about Verne's story was how the material developments that sped up global travel required a dramatically increased use of natural resources. When Fogg leaves London, he takes his new valet, Passepartout. The two men board a night train which has scarcely departed London when Passepartout lets out a real cry of despair. In the rush, my state of confusion, I forgot to switch off the gas lamp in my bedroom. Well, my dear fellow, Phileas Fogg replies coldly, you'll be paying the bill. The gas lamp is the novel's running joke. True, it's only a small part of the journey's total cost, but we present-day readers of Verne quickly realize that the joke is on us. We are notoriously the first generation that has realized what the planetary bill for centuries of burning fossil fuel is going to be. In Verne's era, coal was a costly but essential part of modern progress. Yet Fogg's steam-powered exploits, set at the height of European imperialism, represents a phase of the past that truly is history, meaning over and done with. Airplanes have replaced the coal-burning engines and ships that hurtled Fogg around the world. The empires that protected some people, including Fogg, at the expense of others, have been replaced with other political regimes. It's now difficult to cross the surface of the world in 80 days, though it's easy to fly around it in hours if you can afford the ticket and get the passport and the visas. When I returned from sea back on land, I looked for a history of around the world travel. There was none, so I wrote one. Now, I very quickly decided very early on in the project that there was no point in trying to document all of the circumnavigations that ever actually existed. I didn't want to write an encyclopedia. I wanted to explain why a circumnavigation is distinctive. Why do we have the term around the world or circumnavigation? What do these mean? Why does going around the world matter in the broader scheme of things? It matters because it shows how human beings have been thinking themselves on a planetary scale for a long time, for very nearly 500 years. This is really significant. We think that planetary consciousness is recent, something developed in modern times, something that we have that people in the past didn't. And we especially associate this realization of things on a planetary scale with our ongoing environmental crisis, which we think of as unprecedented, which it is. But the planetary consciousness that may go along with it may not be unprecedented. Circumnavigators for a very long time were, by definition, not only thinking of themselves in relation to the entire planet, but doing something in relation to it by going around it. Circumnavigation is, in fact, the oldest human activity done on a planetary scale, And quite remarkably, it's 16th century sailors who did it first. So in this book, I define around the world travel as a geodrama, from the Greek for earth, ge or Gaia, and for action, drama. Within the European countries that sponsored the first circumnavigations, there was an established tradition of considering the world as a theater, theatra mundi. This is an ancient Greek idea, sustained through Roman antiquity and the Renaissance, and exemplified perhaps most famously in Shakespeare's claim that all the world's a stage. The theatra mundi was a metaphor, but around the world travelers made it a reality by presenting themselves as actors on a stage of planetary dimensions. Over time, circumnavigations would be represented as dramatic entertainments, first in print, then on stage, and later in film. Geodrama is different from geography, meaning depictions of the earth made by writing, graphos. While geography engages the human eye, hand, and mind, geodrama requires all of a human being, the entire body and its range of physical experiences in relation to Gaia, the earth. That whole body experience of the whole earth is well documented in accounts of circumnavigation, which describe what it felt like, from agonizing to exhilarating. Most people never go around the world, but by now almost everyone has some idea of the big statement that such a journey makes. For that reason, published first-person accounts of circumnavigations are this book's principal sources. Together, the accounts constitute the longest and most sustained way in which people have been able to consider themselves as actors within a geodrama, even as the drama has changed over time. The changes can be understood as three acts in the drama, three phases in human beings' comprehension of themselves as actors on the physical planet. In the first act, which lasted from Magellan's departure on the first circumnavigation to James Cook's death in Hawaii, that is from 1519 to 1779, mariners who went around the world did so in fear. It was reasonable for them to be fearful, given the dangers of such a voyage in the age of sail, when mortality rates for circumnavigations kind of routinely hovered in the 80th and 70th percentiles. So a lot of people tried to go around the world. The world simply shrugged most of them off. So in this initial phase, the longest in the history of circumnavigation, death prevailed and fear was the response. From the 1780s until the 1920s, however, travelers who made their way around the world did so with a striking confidence that they could survive the experience. That was because Western societies had generated technology and political networks that seemed to have conquered the globe. At this point, it was not only possible to go around the world, but it had become a popular pastime. Representations of doing a circumnavigation became playful, enticing, even joyous. There were costs, not all of them hidden, but they seemed outweighed by the glories of making an easy swing around the planet. Over the 20th century and now into the early 21st century, the confidence has given way to doubt. Technologically newer forms of travel, especially airplanes and rocket-propelled space capsules, revived the sense of extreme danger that had faded during the relatively safer 19th century. Equally, it's now clear that imperialism had smoothed the way for most earlier circumnavigators under political and social conditions that would be unwise and unjust to perpetuate, let alone recreate. Above all, there's a growing sense that the planet is again beginning to bite back or shrug us off, now that the environmental costs of planetary domination have begun to haunt us. We live with all three legacies of around-the-world travel: a re-emerging fear that the planet could simply shrug us off, continuing confidence that we might be able to generate technologies and political alliances to dominate the planet, but doubt that it is always wise to dominate it in that way. It's especially apparent that the characteristic confidence of the long 19th century was the shortest of planetary experiences, yet has been the most difficult for us to relinquish. Our current doubts seem to be taking us back to the fears of the early modern period, a circular return that matches the swings around the globe that themselves went through the three acts of geodrama. But there were always more hopeful elements to the story. Those bright moments matter too, and they make clear that the human past is as complicated and contradictory as its present condition, whether seen on a small scale or a large one, even the largest of all, a geodrama in three acts. Well, I wish I could introduce you to all of the characters in the book, all of the people, the animals, and